Welcome. I just got done surfing through the web looking for some interesting ghost stories to document. Would you like to have a listen? Grab a seat and get comfortable, and I'll share with you some ghost stories and creepy evidence that might show that there are ghosts among us. Found at the Stanley Hotel. What is this? I went on a tour at the Stanley Hotel and cam stopped working at the end of this hallway, but someone got a picture and captured this. I used to work as a carer for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. I worked all the shifts you could imagine due to COVID, and we were severely short-staffed. This one particular shift, I'd started at 5 p.m. and wasn't finishing until 7:30 the next morning. When I came in, I was informed during handover that one of our residents had passed away earlier that day. I was working on that unit. Afternoon staff shift finished at 9:30 p.m., and that's when night staff would come on, but I couldn't join the night handover, as I needed to cover the units until staff were told who's where sort of thing. Anyways, fast forward to 11 p.m. Some residents had meds, so I grabbed the meds trolley and started walking down the hallway. I passed room 64, where our resident had passed away, and I felt pure fear. My stomach sank and my heart started pounding. I felt terrified. I forgot about it shortly after due to the call bells going off left, right, and center. After I'd seen to the residents who required assistance, I started doing hourly checks. The silence was so loud and eerie. As I was walking down the corridor, I heard someone press their call bell, so I went to the tannoy to see what room number it was. It was 64. I was confused because that resident had passed away earlier that day. I went to the room and stood outside for a few seconds, anticipating what I would see if I opened the door. There was nothing there. The room was cold and empty. The call bell was still plugged in, so I thought it could have been like a fault or something. So I unplugged it and just left it on the bed and walked out, closing the door behind me. Fast forward to 3 a.m. I made a coffee and was sat in the lounge just flicking through the TV channels when the call bell tannoy went off. So I got up to have a look, and it was room 64 again. I went to the room and the door was open ajar, so I thought it was one of my co-workers messing about and trying to scare me. So I walked in expecting to see the call bell plugged in, but it wasn't. It was still on the bed, unplugged. I was so creeped out. I turned it off and left the room. I got to the doorway of the lounge and it went off again. Room 64. Rinse and repeat a couple more times apart from the third and final time. This time I turned it off, but I went into the bathroom, and on the side in the corner was a teddy bear, which was this particular resident's favorite teddy. He took it everywhere with him and slept with it too. I thought it was so strange that it was still there. Maybe they'd forgot about it when the room was cleaned out. Anyway, I picked the teddy up and put it on the bed, resting on the pillow. I left the room, closing the door, and the alarm never went off again. I truly believe that he was letting me know he just wanted to cuddle his teddy. Please keep in mind this happened to me around 1 year ago, while working as a second officer on a heavy lifting vessel during my watch. I was not tired or in any way intoxicated. Not possible. Zero drugs policy on board, so I still cannot explain what I saw. Also, please excuse my grammar mistakes or any wrong words. I speak fluent English for work, but writing is not so good. But here goes anything. The scariest thing I've encountered was during a routine night shift, while passing the Atlantic Ocean. I was doing lapses around the bridge console to get some exercise while on watch. This would be from 0 to 0400, and to relax a little bit. While passing the bridge windows, I saw someone walking from the aft to forward on the starboard side, which was not unusual. Just the time at 1:30 was surprising. The crew was allowed to go outside whenever they wanted, so I didn't mind it at first. When I passed by the window again after doing a full lap, I noticed he was standing between the cargo hold number 1 and the windbreaker, with his back turned to me, looking towards forward. I stopped to see what he was doing, and suddenly he turned around, looking straight at me, and started to wave with his hand while standing perfectly still. This made me uneasy because at this time I started to notice some weird things. For example, he was wearing a white overall, which is normal for officers, but at our company, all overalls for officers and ratings is red with silver reflective strips on the shoulders. Also, he was wearing an orange helmet, which could have been possible. We have some, but all the crew have white helmets. Also, it should have been impossible to see me from forward. All the lights on the bridge were off and the deck lights were on, so it was reflecting when watching from below. So while this person is standing there waving, I walk over to the console and grab my radio and I try calling him. No response. He just kept waving and following me while walking around the bridge with his face. I saw him on the starboard side bridge and the radio was on the port side bridge, near the cart table. After calling him again, I went back to the light console to turn on the bridge spotlights, which flooded the deck with lights. I looked up from the console and he was gone. So I think to myself, okay, he might be hiding in the stairway to the paint store, or he is inside the passage to forward station, inside the windbreaker, and I wait with the lights on. After 30 minutes or so, I decided to turn off the lights, but kept watching for some time, but haven't seen him again. So the next morning, I asked around if anyone was on deck during my watch, but everyone confirmed that they were sleeping during that time, which made sense to me and it seemed like they were telling the truth. Also, no one owns white overalls, because again, our overalls are all red. Why would anyone walk around the deck at 01:30 hours? We have no safety round, and usually no additional lookout who's awake at this time. Usually it's only me during my watch. Some guys thought it was a prank, but no one knew anything about anyone planning or doing anything like this. Not even when I asked them to tell me the truth. I believed them, because why would they lie about this? I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. Not gonna lie, they would have gotten me good, so I would have laughed together with the prankster, but no one said anything or admitted to it. Even months later, what really freaked me out about this is the stiff movement of the person and the sudden staring while standing still. I can't explain what I saw, and I have no reasonable explanation to this day, because no one admitted to pranking me or going on the deck at the same time. Also, the sudden disappearance when turning on the floodlights is still unexplained. I also checked the spot where I saw the person, and there was no evidence of hiding anywhere. The paint store stairway and the entrance to the bosun's store was locked every evening, and it was still locked when I checked it the next morning. So yeah, this is the only weird experience I had while working at sea for the last 5 years. I still cannot explain what I saw. I don't believe it was some hallucinations, because I saw him for at least 5 minutes, from walking to forward and standing in forward looking at me, and I turned away a few times to grab the radio or walk to the console. He only disappeared when I turned on the floodlights, but this was the only time I saw anything like this. Churches are creepy places at night. I didn't see anything in a church, but definitely heard something. I was 15 years old and lived on Fort Meade in Maryland. I had a job bagging groceries at the commissary, and it paid crazy money for a 15-year-old in the 80s. I got off in the evening, and since it was fall, it was already starting to get dark. I started to unlock my bike to ride home when I see my mom pull up in our van. She says that she's going to decorate her classroom at our church, and wants to know if I want to go with her. I said sure and hopped in the van. The church is in Bowie, so we are just chatting and driving and everything is perfectly normal. We roll into the parking lot and I grab the box of decorations. We are the only people there and she unlocks the door. I walk in and she walks in and immediately locks the door behind us. We are in the foyer and we walk down the hall to the left and enter the first door on the left. Her room. Still, so far so good and nothing's out of place. We start to take items out of the box and figure out how we want to decorate. We hadn't been in the room for 3 minutes when, from somewhere deep in the church, a woman screamed. This was the most blood-curdling scream I have ever heard, and I can tell you, just typing this out, my eyes are starting to water, and my breath is getting short. This kind of fear is not pleasant to revisit. It felt like all of the blood in my body had turned to ice and ran directly to my feet. I grabbed a metal folding chair, WWE style, and hid behind the door. My mother asked what I was doing, and I said if anyone came through that door, they were getting a face full of chair. She thought that was a good plan and looked for a weapon of her own. She settled on a rubber baby doll, which made me laugh, and she told me to be quiet. If there's a maniac in here, we don't want them to know that we're here, she said. Seemed like sound logic. We wait in the room for an eternity. We whispered back and forth about what to do. Getting back to the front door wasn't an option, as we would have to walk out there and get the door unlocked, and we didn't know who or what was out there. Suddenly, and without warning, my mother abandoned the let's be quiet plan in favor of a very unsettling let's scream weird stuff about Jesus plan. We are protected by our Heavenly Father, and in His name I smite you, she screams out of the top of her lungs. I nearly jumped out of my skin, and I was very unhappy about this change of plans. We finally decided to open the window and run to the van. We made it to the van and started driving home in silence, both of us shaking. My mother told me that I was never to talk to anyone about this, and that seemed reasonable to me. In hindsight, I wonder why she didn't stop somewhere to call the police.